the stimulus bill. He happens to be Republican Representative Peter Roskam of Illinois, and he joins me right now. Good morning, Congressman. Thanks for being here.
I'm delighted. Thanks.
So you must be in a little bit of an interesting position here. You work very closely with Caterpillar. You represent the district. Here it is that the CEO of Caterpillar is saying, look, you passed the stimulus, I'll rehire some of those 22,000 people that I announced in layoffs, yet you voted against it. What's going on here?
Well, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. I think it's interesting that the CEO said they're going to do some rehiring, and you would expect some rehiring based on the stimulus plan. But I think the stimulus plan itself falls so short of what it could be. In other words, this is a short-term plan. It is not sustainable over the long run. And what happens when the stimulus spending stops? What kind of position is Caterpillar going to be in then? I think what we needed to do was to take a much longer view and to say, the American public gets it. They know that we can't borrow and spend our way into prosperity. And unfortunately, that's the lion's share of this plan. And I think the disappointing thing is that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid are plopping something on the President's desk that really falls short of what I think the American people are calling for, and that is long-term economic strength and growth.
So I'm curious here. The President is going to Peoria, Illinois today. He's going to a Caterpillar manufacturing plant. I don't know if you plan to see him today or be there, but what do you say to the President knowing that one of your main corporations, your constituents, feels that this is necessary and would help save jobs, and yet you don't think it's the right medicine to cure the economy?
Yeah, I think it falls short of what it could actually be. In other words, why not think about the amount of money that the American public is being asked to spend for the creation of each of these jobs. $225,000 per job that's created. I mean, in the long run, that makes no economic sense, and the public gets it. So I think what we need to do is take a step back and say, okay, let's create long-term prosperity, and the way that you do that is you lower the overall tax burden on small businesses and entrepreneurs and the self-employed. In an $800 billion package, only $40 million is actually going to tax relief for the same entity that everybody says creates long-term prosperity. You know, the President in his inaugural speech said that we're in this position with a weak economy right now based on our inability and unwillingness to make tough economic decisions. And I agree with the President, but this bill falls back into that same old habit, simply of spending, borrowing, and not creating the long-term opportunity.
Let me jump in here. Clearly you have a very, very valid point about small businesses. I understand that a lot of the opportunities in here for small businesses to take losses, capital losses over 5 years retroactively was something that was pulled out of the final version of this bill. But when you say $225,000 per individual for sort of nothing, let's also keep in mind that we're talking about infrastructure, long-term infrastructure projects, long-term transportation projects, long-term education consequences by educating our kids and fixing our schools. Don't those things pay off in the long term, as you mentioned?
Well, I would suggest this. On the infrastructure side, only 2.7% of this $800 billion bill is for the type of infrastructure that you and I would have a common understanding of what that is. In other words, roads, bridges, underwater sewer projects, and so forth. But there's things in this bill, for example, $30 million to save a marsh mouse in San Francisco, $20 million to save shellfish in Massachusetts, $50 million for the National Endowment of the Humanities. Those are all nice, good things to contemplate and discuss, but they're not stimulative. And what I'm suggesting is it is just spending. You know, as former Congressman Rahm Emanuel said, the President's now Chief of Staff, the Democrats are not missing the opportunity to take advantage of a crisis. And I just think that's really disappointing.
All right, but we also know that those percentages of those smaller items, while I completely agree with you, some of which are very unreasonable, are a tiny part of the bill. Just quickly, in 10 seconds, if you see the President today, what are you going to say to him?
Well, I think he could do better, and I think he should hold out for a better bill. I think that's very unlikely, but that would be my hope.
All right. Well, Congressman Roskam from Illinois, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning. Good speaking to you.
Thank you.